What's up everybody, it's Danielle Marie and I'm back today with another video. I am so excited to make this video because I was at work today, had some free time, and I went on Complex's website because I really like Complex's content, and I saw that they had like a section about like decade stuff, and they had a list of like their top 10 best rappers of the decade or whatever. So we're gonna talk about that list, and it's gonna be my personal opinions based off of things that I already know about each of these artists, and also I'm gonna be citing the things that they put in their article. I posted on my story that a certain artist had made the list, and did people agree with him being on the list, but they also didn't agree that some of the other people should have made the list either. And then there's some people that did make the list that people felt like should have made the list. So we gonna talk about all of that because, man, I have my opinion. So we're gonna get right into the video. Just watch the intro real quick.
We gotta get together, just the two of us alone, chilling and talking is what I really want. Where's that? First time that we met, first time that we met, you say communication is all that I needed, but from you it just seems unneeded. That shit is crazy.
Just a disclaimer once again, this is Complex's top 10 rappers of the decade list. This is just meant to start a discussion and see, do people generally agree with this list or do we not agree with this list? You know what I mean? So let's get right into it. The whole reason that I even felt like making this video is because of the number 10 person on this list. It really baffled me. Actually, before I even get into the list, let's talk about, and sorry if I'm looking down, it's because I wrote in my like notebook, like literally each artist, I wrote like different things about them, and it's on like multiple pages. So first, let's talk about the criteria that they set and go off of to come to their conclusion of how these people made the list. So their criteria is based off the artist's overall impact, consistency, skill, and influence over the decade. So keep that in mind when we're talking about these people, and you know, just the little reasons that they put behind it. Like, keep those things in mind because they do matter. Number 10 on their list is Pusha-T. Now, I might sound like a mad hater, but I'm just gonna say I don't understand how he made this list. Let me refer to my notes, okay? My main questions are, what hit songs did he have? Because I looked this up myself, like as far as like Billboard charts and stuff go. His top 3 charting songs are songs that he's featured on. They're not even his own songs. And then the other songs that have charted of his that were like, Billboard had like a top 8. The other songs that charted were all from his album that he dropped last year, Daytona. It wasn't any songs from any other like albums he's had or nothing. So we got an album that he just dropped last year, and then we got songs that are featured, that he's just featured on. So to me, it's like, how can you even put him on the list when the only other songs that are actually his title songs are from an album that dropped last year? Like, what happened to the other like 9 years in the decade, or 8 years or whatever before that? This didn't make sense to me either. Basically, it seemed like they were using the fact that he had the feud with Drake as like a reason for him to make the list. I didn't feel like that specific feud with Drake, and also Cash Money, was a good enough reason to put him on the list, because it only made him relevant for that time. Like all that other time before then, he wasn't like relevant the way that the other people on this list are relevant. So that's also what I'm like basing my opinion off of, is like the other people that are put on this list, it just doesn't, like him being on the list with them just doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we saying that Pusha T is top 10 based off this feud with Drake? Because we're not saying Meek Mill is a top 10 artist of the decade. Each artist at the end of like the stuff that's written about them, it's like has the name of the person who wrote that. So I'm sure a lot of this is like the person who wrote it's like personal opinion, but still like collectively they should try to like distance from their personal opinion and base it off factual things, because yeah, this just, he has dropped albums, you know, throughout the decade obviously, so that there's the consistency with that. But were those like charting albums, were those songs that really made him a household name? Like once you hear the other people on this list and you compare them to him, you're gonna be like, he's just not there yet. Like I'm not saying he can't ever get there, but like as it stands, he's not on the same level as these other artists that are on the list. I think also with them making this list, I don't think they completely stuck to those 4 things. I feel like, and I could be wrong because, you know, I obviously don't work at Complex and I wasn't in the discussions, you know, that they had, but I feel like they had other things that went into this, because when I was like reading through some of the like things that they were writing about these different artists, I was like, okay, I know what they say that they're basing things off of, but it also seems like they're talking about like these other things. But still, Pusha-T just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, number 9 is Tyler the Creator. If you listen to Tyler, you know that previously a lot of his songs weren't necessarily like getting played on mainstream radio, but Tyler has had a huge fan base since he came out, and they've like definitely are devoted and have followed him through whatever endeavors he's had, when it's came to even like what's his show on the Adult Swim, like y'all know what show I'm talking about, like when it came to that, when it came to like even like doing apparel and things like that, like his fan base are true supporters, and that has helped him, one, be relevant, and his songs and albums to do well, even without him being like an artist that's played on the radio consistently. He can have a tour and have sold out shows and sell his albums, songs do well and everything. I think he's true to himself. He's just a musically gifted artist, thinks outside the box, and it shows in his music. Like you can listen to any of his albums, any of his songs, and you can see like where things, he just has taken things to like a new level. So in that aspect, I feel like there's been an influence, and my dog is eating her dog food right now. So like he is not just doing music. Like there's a lot of things that's kept him relevant. There's a lot of things that's kept him consistent. Not to mention he is a great artist, and he doesn't just stick to doing like this specific thing. Like he's innovative, and I think that's a big part of like him making this list as well, regardless of if you agree with it or not. I think that there's good arguments as to him making this list. Number 8 is Nicki Minaj. She definitely deserves to be on this list. Like I don't think anybody can debate that, like, because one, she's the only female rapper that's dominating the scene. Like there's no other female rapper that's dominating the scene like Nicki Minaj was and is, other than recently being Cardi B. But if we're talking about the span of the decade, there's not nobody else that can hold anything to Nicki Minaj. They had put in their article that she might be the most important female rapper ever. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, because I think the female rappers that came before her, like back in the 90s and things like that, definitely have a very important role in this, because without them, not saying that she wouldn't be doing what she's doing, but without them making a spot for women to even fit into the realm of rap and be accepted into it, like without them doing all that, like all the women that came before her, she would not have propelled the way that she did, you know, like at the time that she did and for as long as she did, if that spot wasn't already open for her to like jump into. Lyrically, everybody knows lyrically she's a beast. She's definitely influenced lots of female rappers today. And she's made it a lot easier for other female rappers to come after her and have a spot. Like, you guys know there's so many female rappers now, and they're definitely getting a lot of recognition. And I feel like without Nicki really being so dominant this last decade, and since she like came onto the scene, that there would not be as many female rappers as there is, and there would not be as many people paying attention to the female rappers as they are now, because you know, you have Nicki Minaj and you're thinking, who's gonna be the next Nicki Minaj? Like, who's gonna be the next one to be on everybody's song, to have longevity like she's had, like this long, and do the things she's done and set the trends? Because y'all know when Nicki came out, like everybody was like, she's different, she's this. People was like wanting to dress like her, do their hair like her, because y'all know she was doing like all the crazy stuff, and she's been very influential. If y'all say Nicki shouldn't be on this list, y'all just are haters. Like, you have to look at like the facts. Even if you like forget your personal opinion, like the facts are there as to why she deserves to be on this list. Number 7 is Jay-Z. When I put on my story that the list of the other artists, some people were like, they didn't really agree with Jay-Z being on there. But y'all have to understand, this is over the entire decade. I think for him, they also consider things like the fact that he has his business ventures. I feel like that also kind of like adds into him being relevant, the relevancy aspect, and the consistency aspect. So Watch the Throne was massive, obviously, and he also had Magna Carta, and then most recently 444. Well, actually most recently he had the album, the joint album with Beyonce, The Carters. Like, he might not drop something every single year, but throughout the decade, you know, the music has been there, and he's had chart topping songs, or he's been on other people's songs and they've charted. So I mean, that all fits the criteria. And also, he's one of the only, like, I don't know his exact age, but y'all know that Jay-Z is up there in age, and he's one of the only artists that has been able to stay relevant like his entire career. And he's up in age, like, still doing this. Number 6 is Travis Scott. I really love Travis. Like, I love all of Travis's music. I love his music videos. I think his music videos are super, super, super creative. So I think the creative genius and all that is there. I think his spot is well deserved, because a lot of people, if you're only just now jumping onto like the Travis train, if you're just now jumping on the Travis train, then you're gonna be like, oh, he's only been around for like the last 2 years or so. Like, no, if you've actually been listening to Travis, he's been around for a very long time, and he was already working with like Kanye, like towards the closer end of the beginning of the decade, you know? So I think his spot is well deserved, because from the time that he got big was what, like back in 2014, 15-ish, somewhere around there, like the better half of this decade, he's been very relevant, and he's done massive things that most artists have not done. Like, how many artists do you know have had their own music festival? I feel like his fame catapulted quickly. Like, he was relevant, but then I feel like once he became like really known, everything just kept going like up and up and up from there. Just think about all those things. I think his spot is well deserved. Now, people might argue with where he's at on the list, because like I said, he's at number 6. So they actually put him above Nicki Minaj, and they put him above Jay-Z. So, you know. So number 5 is J.Cole. I don't have no disputes about him being on this list. I think if he wasn't on this list, that would be crazy. My dispute, I guess, would be his spot on the list, and I'll explain that when the next person comes up. He's just one of those artists that's like a creative genius, in my opinion. I feel like a lot of these artists on here are like what I consider creative geniuses, and when I say that, I say that like they really go into the process of like their music, and they bring in other elements. Throughout this decade, he's dropped albums and had massive hits off the albums, went platinum with no features. That was a big deal. He makes songs that appeal to those who are fans of rap, and there's been lots of debates over like people who are like conscious rappers, and then the younger generation not really liking artists like that and only wanting to listen to like mumble rappers and rappers who aren't talking about anything. So I think for somebody like him, who actually talks about like real shit and like can just like deliver it in a way that is like relatable to everybody, you know, like I think that's very, very, very important to keeping you like relevant and having a career for like a long time, no matter the age of like your fan base and stuff. They put in his their little write-up about him that he hasn't had a career defining year. I don't really know what they mean, like most people's career defining year is when they become like a household name, like where everybody knows them. So I don't know. Number 4 on the list. Now I am going to talk about my personal opinions a little bit more in depth on this one, because I don't agree with the placement of him on the list. They have number 4 being Future. I can't even remember what song it was that made him big, but it was on the radio all the time, and I thought it was the most annoying song ever. I was like, oh my gosh, why do they keep playing this song? I hate this song. But later on, his songs like grew on me. Now I wouldn't say that I like all his songs, but there are songs that I do like, or like songs that he's featured on and I like, you know, his part in the songs. And he can make music where obviously it's like rap, but also has kind of like a R&B undertone and stuff to it. That has worked well for him throughout his career. They put in their article that Andre 3000 said that he's the most negative he makes the most negative inspirational music ever. Now I don't agree with the inspirational part. He's like King Noodlehead. I don't like his personality completely. Like sometimes I like that he's just so like chill and nonchalant, but then like he says like certain things and I'm just like, why? So that's why he's a noodlehead. But I think, like I said, he knows how to capitalize off that. He's had many features throughout his career, and I think that's helped keep him relevant even if he's not dropping anything. But he's also dropped a ton of things. Like when they listed like all the things, because like in each of the on each post they listed what projects each artist has dropped in this decade. Like his was like definitely the longest. I was like, dang, like he just makes music like all the time and just has like a surplus of music to just drop. But I guess I can kind of understand why they would put him at number 4 based off their criteria. Number 3 on the list is Kanye. He's controversial AF, but I do think he deserves to be on the list because he definitely is a very influential person, whether you like him or not. Based, you know, we know the things he said. We don't even have to get into that, but you can't say that he hasn't been influential. You can't say that he's not a musical genius. Like his albums have done well regardless of any of like the other things going on. Listen to like his first album to like the albums he just dropped. Like couldn't be more like night and day sound wise. And then of course just him, the albums in between having just different elements. And if you watch like anything with him, he looks at like the details of a lot of different things. He has made a lot of money, not just from music, but from him having Yeezys, and all of his clothing and apparel things like has done very well. No matter what he's dropped, it's all done very well. And so I feel like that's something that they probably considered when putting him on the list. Not that even if he didn't have the clothing and shoes and stuff, like he still would be on this list, you know? Number 2 is Kendrick Lamar. That's another person. I'm not debating them being on this list. I think he deserves to be on this list. He stayed very relevant throughout this decade. Everything he drops is bomb. I love his music videos because like they're not just like regular music videos. Lyrically unmatched, other than with probably, you know, like j.cole, of course. What did he win? Like a Pulitzer or like a Nobel? He won some award that other rappers are not out here winning that type of award. Of course, you know that Humble did extremely well. He also is another one who can talk about real stuff in his raps, but make it relatable and like make you want to listen to it and make you still be able to like turn up to it, even though he's talking about like some real stuff. You probably already know who number 1 is, and I don't have any debates over him being number 1 because he, like, you can't argue with his relevancy and his consistency, and you just can't argue with any of it. Number one, if you don't know or haven't guessed it already, is Drake, of course. Literally everything he's done since he's came out has been a hit. Like, even before like 2010, like everything he's done has just been great. He's just catapulted up and up. Like, he hasn't had a down year. So he's just been continuously going up, and that's crazy to think about when you think about the span of like all these years. You think about all the artists who have came up. That's crazy for somebody to be able to go that long and not have one thing that's brought them down. They put in their article, you know, he lost a feud. I wouldn't really say that he lost a feud, because it really didn't affect Drake. You know, like, of course people said stuff at the time. At the end of the day, did that really affect Drake? Did that really affect his money? Did that really affect like the masses' opinion of him? Like, no, none of that happened to him. It would be crazy for him to have a career where he just has stayed up the entire time, and he can like retire from it and say that he's never had like a down moment. Like, I really hope that happens for him, you know? I mean, I hope that happens for a lot of artists, but I really truly hope that happens for him, because I mean, how many artists can say that they've had a career and like it just was up the whole time? Not only is Drake a household name, which is another reason why his spot is rightfully earned on this, he's not even just household here in America. He's like internationally a household name. He's also big because he can fluidly cross genres. Like, he can move fluidly in any of those genres and make hits. I would love to hear anybody's argument on why Drake shouldn't be number one, and I would love to hear who you would put above Drake as number one rap artist of this last decade, because I mean, I don't know who you would put as number one. That's Complex's top 10 list. You know, for the most part, this is an okay list. There were some people who were upset that Lil Wayne wasn't on the list. Obviously, Lil Wayne is an influential artist. Some people were saying, you know, he hasn't really been that relevant throughout this decade. Discuss that amongst yourselves. There are people upset that Eminem didn't make the list because they were talking that, you know, he had Recovery and The Bad Meets Evil and then some other albums. I can understand why Eminem didn't make the list, only because in the grand scheme of things, has he been relevant? You don't hear anything about him. If we're going based off their criteria, which it seemed they were loosely going off of, he didn't fully meet that criteria. I wouldn't necessarily say he had like an impact either over the decade. There is a lot of people saying that Migos needed to be on the list. I can see where they could possibly be on the list, or even at least like an honorable mention. One that I could see being on this list is Young Thug. He definitely has had some chart-topping songs. I do think Young Thug has influenced, you know, some of these other rappers that have came up over the last like few years. He's stayed relevant. He has dropped things consistently. Even if you don't even really like his music, like, he has catchy stuff. I think he could have made this list. Everything is debatable. That's what you guys have to understand. Like, all of this stuff is debatable except for Drake. Drake, of course, is gonna be number one, and I'm not just saying that because I like Drake. I'm saying that because the facts back that up. So some people said Childish Gambino should have been on this list. Now we're gonna take this to Instagram, because there are a lot of people who were responding to what I was saying to like my story on Instagram. 59% say yes, 41% say no. Like I said on this initial post, I didn't say that it was a top 10 list. I didn't say who any of the other artists were. So, you know, some people's opinions did change once I made the post stating that extra information. I had somebody say, get the fuck out of here with him be on the list. Somebody said Pusha-T is a fucking legend. I said, please explain, and they didn't explain. So if you can't back up what you're saying to me, don't give me your opinion. They said he doesn't make stadium music, he just makes drug dealer writing music. And they said Pusha T is not headlining a festival, but also the industry be politicking. So, you know, I was like, on the festival part, I was like, exactly, like, if Pusha T is headlining a festival, are y'all going to see that festival for Pusha T? They said that the list didn't make sense because it should have, this I didn't agree with. They said it should have like future Juice WRLD artists that chart crazy, and not just putting people just because who they are, like because Jay-Z's Jay-Z. He didn't release shit this year, or Kendrick. I said they won't list artists like Juice WRLD because artists that fall into, you know, that type of category, as you know, Juice WRLD, are all new and they haven't been around long enough to really say they were big this decade. So I was saying this has a lot to do with longevity and relevancy. You know, if you can say relevant for 10 years or almost 10, then that's who they're looking at, minus Pusha. I sound like a hater, like a Pusha T hater, but it's not that I'm being a hater. It's like I really just didn't understand how they were justifying putting him on the list based off their own criteria that they said, you know, that Pusha T definitely does not deserve to be in the top 10 list. But they also said that they feel like Complex has lost their validity. And I can kind of understand that. I love Complex. I would love to work for Complex one day. But I can understand why this person or anybody else might feel like Complex is a little less credible when it comes to really being able to like say this is this and this is who y'all should like get behind kind of thing, because I do think a lot of things now are dealt with when it comes to money or who you know, are you friends with this person, yada yada yada. I mean, that's what any big company now these days, I think. But I said I still find value in their opinions and overall content. I said this just didn't make sense to me, especially since they said they have their employees vote on this. Who's working it? Listen, Complex, y'all need me to work for you guys. Y'all need me, because I would have been in that room and I would have been like, hold up. What is going on here? Pusha only had a single good year for real, with hella dope features over the decade, but def not top 10 this year. Clearly some hype beasts said Pusha don't make music just to make music. All his shit spaced out. He took like 3 years to write Daytona and it's 8 songs. And I said, dude, his top 3 charting songs are songs that aren't even his. It's songs he's featured on. I basically said what I already told you guys. I said he hasn't impacted the culture. He hasn't influenced anything or anybody. He doesn't even have that solid of a fan base, or else his other works would have done well. He said, I personally think he's for sure one of the best lyricists of all time. Like, he's very good with wordplay and telling a coherent story. He's not that popular in my opinion because he doesn't get marketed like these other guys, but he for sure gets hella industry respect for some reason. I do think that there are a lot of artists who do respect Pusha T, especially like when the whole debacle and stuff with Drake was going on. There was a lot of artists who were obviously kind of like siding with him. You know, he's good with his storytelling and wordplay, but yeah, he's not marketed. And maybe that's the real reason. Like, maybe he's just not marketed enough. If he was marketed enough, maybe he would be more like justified to be on this list. You know, more people would know him and all this stuff. Maybe he just doesn't want to be marketed a lot. Maybe the way labels want to market him, he doesn't want to do that, and maybe that's why that's hindered him in being able to be bigger than what he probably could be. I don't know. If we're talking rappers, you have to eliminate Travis, Kanye, Future, and Drake by the standard of actual rap skills. I could see him top 10, but that's based on ability in my opinion. So yeah, if you just base it on those things, like if you want to be like basing it off people's lyricism and things like that, then yeah, there are people who would be eliminated from this. I really enjoyed making this video. Like, I love talking about music, but I want to hear what you guys think. Like, I want to hear who would you put as your top 10. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Like, let's talk about this from 2010 to 2019. Who should be on the list? Thanks for watching.